Hi everyone, listening on Spotify and watching on YouTube. It's another episode of NRG Insights. Those who haven't listened before, NRG Insights is just insights into the mortgage and finance world, speaking to people of influence and anyone that can really kind of add value. So on that note, we've got Scott Marshall today from Roma Finance. Thanks for joining me, Scott.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks, Marcus.
Now we go back quite a long way, don't we? We'll talk about that, but back in the good old days. But we'll come to that. But firstly, just talk to me about your kind of financial services journey. If people don't know how you got to where you are today with Roma.
Yeah, so with the greatest pleasure. So I started when I left university. I did engineering at university. I went into the family business. That lasted for 3 or 4 years. Realised that actually I wanted to be an accountant, and so I left the family business, which was engineering, and wanted to become a trainee accountant. Went for a number of interviews, and I was offered the position, not in audit, not in receivership, not in corporate recovery, but in corporate finance, and it became very, very sexy. And I thought to myself, you know what, I can move into corporate finance. This is great, mergers and acquisitions, disposals, acquisitions, MBOs, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I was, I could qualify much more quickly through the Securities Institute exams. Joined a firm called Arthur Andersen, who were one of the top 5 at the time, one of the top 5 accountancy firms. Joined them 3 years into it, qualified, and then Enron happened, which brought down the entire global business of Arthur Andersen.
Yeah.
My wife was pregnant with our first child, and I was due to be promoted to manager as I qualified, and because of the fact that my boss was going to be no longer my boss, I then had to wait another year for promotion. So I left. I applied for voluntary redundancy, got rejected, and left anyway to go to a boutique corporate finance firm, which that turned out to be a disastrous move.
Right.
And
Why was
that
that
lasted.
it was just not right. Why was that out of interest?
Just culturally, culture in a business, culture is everything, and the culture wasn't me. I'm a family man. My work is my work, my private life is my private life, and that company was much more interested in going out evenings and what have you with clients and to places that I didn't want to go to.
What's interesting, though, we will touch on this again. Sorry, I'll interrupt all the way through, but it helped you, right? It helps you now, and we'll go through this more, but it must help you. You go through these things and you realise what you don't want.
Every single experience that you have in your career, whether it's a positive experience or a negative experience, helps to shape you into the person that you end up being.
Yeah.
And interesting, I think that you learn more from when things go wrong than when things go right. So if I think back to my career, I've been, I think, sacked 4 times or 5 times. I've been made redundant 4 times or 5 times from different businesses, and from each job in each sector, working for a different person or a different business with a different culture, different outlook. Actually, I don't think I would be doing what I'm doing today had I not had all those experiences. I don't think I'd be able to make the kind of decisions that I make now on the loans that we write at Roma had I not have had an engineering background, had I not have worked in the family business, and the family business had some challenges. Has had some challenges over the years. So even kind of sat on the other side of the fence, seeing how other people behave, you realise that actually there's a different way in which you would have wanted to have been treated.
This is how I would have done it. Yeah.
Yeah. This is what as a person in a family business that was, after 50 years started to struggle.
Yeah.
How should my family have been treated by the lender that was supporting that business?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And therefore, how do I want to behave if I'm in that position?
Yeah. That makes sense.
And all these things help shape you. So working, and again we can get on to how I joined what was then Lancashire Mortgage Corporation back in 2003, and kind of riding the.
That was where we first met when I was.
Yeah, and so what happened was I joined that boutique corporate finance firm. It didn't work out. Wasn't right for me. Wasn't right for them. But before I joined them, when I was Arthur Andersen, they were the auditors of what's now Together. Securitization was a brand new thing back in 2001, 2002, and I picked up the phone to a guy who was then the chief operations officer at together, Blemain as they were then, and said, you're interested in having a conversation about securitization? I hadn't got a clue what I was talking about. We had a meeting, and then nothing ever happened from it. But when I was looking to leave the boutique corporate finance firm, when I picked up the phone to, and this is how it all happened, I picked up the phone to the guy who owns Together and said, how do you fancy a young, hungry, bright person working for you? Had a coffee, and so that ended up in me getting the job there. I was going to kind of go around the different departments at what was the Lancashire Mortgage Corporation in Blemain. My first secondment was in underwriting, and I never left. And ended up going from underwriter to senior underwriter to head of underwriting to credit and risk director in a space of about 3 or 4 years.
Level that was 2007.
Yeah, but I was director, but I was only really a director in name only. There was no kind of responsibility really, apart from mandating cases that sat behind it. I couldn't send money. I couldn't.
Got brokers on the phone.
Yeah. And but again, I underwrote thousands and thousands of transactions. I mean, if we were funding 120, 150 cases a month, I didn't see all of the cases, but I saw, such a large number of cases. You learn a bit more from every single loan that you write.
Yeah.
You learn a bit more from every customer you talk to, every broker you talk to. When you get screamed and shouted at by, some of the brokers, particularly at Go Commercial at the time, who were hungry to get the deals over the line. When you pay this out, and learning how to deal with difficult people, how to deal with difficult situations. Sometimes you get it right, and sometimes you don't handle it as well as you should do, particularly as you're learning a trade or a skill.
Yeah.
But it teaches you actually how to handle things.
Yeah.
And all those experiences, and I'd get upset when I was a more junior person because the stuff you couldn't handle. Some of the situations were beyond my experience and beyond my capability at that time. But you think, well, what could I have done differently? What could I have said differently? What have I learned? What have I learned from that I can apply to something else? And so you change your approach and you tweak your approach, and you're able to deal with more difficult, more complex situations, and so you're growing a career.
I mean, the most complex situation I think we've ever had in history was the one that we talked about, that when you had to come down to our office, didn't you? I think. So I was in commercial finance. Just a quick story. I was in commercial finance years and years ago, and I was but absolutely clueless. Just making good money doing commercial mortgages. I had no idea about funding lines, etc. And then 2008 hit. We got brought into the office, and we basically said, most of the funding lines have gone. Scott's going to come down from, I think it was Lancashire then, wasn't it? And sort of cherry pick through your deals and see what we've got. So we had a bit of a pony show where we just kind of brought all our deals to you. Did we go? Please rescue that one. Please rescue that one. That's not feasible. That one. That's miles out. And that was the end of my commercial finance career, because I didn't really know what to do next. And I think we talked about it before, and I went into recruitment. But yeah, that was a weird time, wasn't it?
Yeah, and look, how you deal with those difficult situations, how you say no to something, is more important than how you give a yes. So we were together going through those cases, the ones that we accepted, talking through why that's a better case than that one, why that's marginal and we shouldn't do it, or why that's a good one we should support it. Yeah. All those, that's good. That's great experience.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because obviously you speak to brokers. I've never put a deal through that I didn't think was a good deal. No point does a broker send it to you thinking, I hope this works. But you know what I mean? Maybe.
The broker's job. The broker is the customer's champion. The broker is incentivized to get
the customer, aren't you? You're not doing it. You think you're doing the right thing. I think
your job as the broker is to sell the story in such a way to a lender that they buy into the deal in order to get the case completed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, I know I said I didn't know what I was doing. I do think that was the one thing I was really good at. Was I could 100%. Sell a deal. I understood how you structured a deal to make it feasible or not. I think that was the one benefit I had. Not understanding finance on the other side was a massive disadvantage.
Yeah, and look, an underwriter's job, it's slightly contraire. Insofar as the underwriter's job is to kind of like lift the bonnet on the case.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a real, lift the bonnet on the case, scratch under the surface of it, and see what comes up. And if there is something that comes out that is an unknown, can you as the underwriter get comfortable with that unknown? Can you mitigate that risk, or is it a red line? And understanding the where that line, where that actual line is, that's something that you can only get from having seen and done lots of cases.
Do you think that your career, I mean, obviously it must be a bit of a closed question, but do you think that your career's starting off as an accountant has made a big difference to where you are now, just the way you see things? Because I think numbers is probably my biggest failure as a business owner. I
Yeah.
love the other sides of the business, but accountancy is just, do you think that's made a massive difference?
So data doesn't lie, numbers don't lie. And understanding numbers, I think, is a skill that should be taught in schools. So many kids come out of school, and maths is one thing, right? But forget maths, because actually, how often do you use Pythagoras' theorem when you are living your life? You just or differentiation. You just don't use it in life generally. Schools should be much better at teaching life skills. So, how do you budget? How do you how do you match income and expenditure? What does debt look like? What does good debt look like? What does bad debt look like? What's a mortgage? Um, what's tax? Where does your tax go? There should be a lot better education that prepares young people for adult life.
Yeah.
And I think
Not
that's
just
one of the major, one of the, and it's not just understanding maths. It's actually understanding what the world looks like that better prepares young people to be successful, the best chances of success
Do you
in their
think the
future
accountancy
careers.
side of things gives you like a bit more of a sixth sense about stuff if it doesn't feel right? Or is it literally so data driven that have you always been a data guy?
No, I think that you do your best business with good people,
Yeah.
and I think that one of the skills that that I think that is massively important is the ability to understand people.
Yeah.
Understanding people, learning how to communicate with people, I think is more important than numbers. I mean, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
You know, the people who often do best in life are those people that get on best with people.
Yeah. Interesting, that actually. It's funny you say, because I've always thought that my numbers thing is a massive flaw. Without being egotistical, I do think I get on well with people. I don't really fall out with people. I get people. I understand. If I've got
Yeah.
empathy and that kind of thing. And I've always looked at it. But for me, the biggest flaw in the business is the number side of things. But like you say, you can't do it without the other side, right?
No, and often in many businesses, you'll have somebody who's the out and out relationship developer.
Yeah.
Okay, you'll have somebody else who is the numbers person, and actually they're a foil for each other. It's very rare that you find in a person or in a business somebody who is articulate and understands numbers.
Yeah. Do you think what skill set? Do you think you've got those skill sets? Do you think you surrounded yourself with good people that have got them both? I think
I think that
you've never come across it to me as like an accountant. You know what I mean? You would
no,
come across as a people person. So
no, I think that you realise that when you going out and you're starting a business, obviously everyone's got imposter syndrome, and am I worthy? Am I capable? It's normal, right? It's normal, but you go out and you've got a certain level of confidence in a certain direction, a certain drive, and a certain ambition. I'm going to have a go at this. Understanding your weaknesses is massively important. So by way of example, when I started Roma, I'd been an underwriter for 7.5 years.
yeah,
I had zero collections experience,
right.
and therefore, my whole thing when I started Roma was, how can I write loans that are not going to go bad because I don't have the skill set to collect in on those loans if something does. And that's where understanding the people that you are lending to, that's how I kind of had to learn that skill,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I couldn't afford to go and write a loan that
Wasn't
went
you?
bad because I didn't have the skill set to go and collect. I would be reliant on other people.
Got you. Yeah,
And obviously so we know as Roma and Roma started right at the depths of the credit crunch.
yeah.
After the credit crunch, so
What
2010 we wrote the first loan.
2010, right then?
So started the business in 2000, end of 2008, beginning of 2009.
What kicked it off out of interest? What was the like the match that went? Do you know what, I can do this?
After I got made redundant from Lancashire Mortgage Corporation as credit and risk director,
Yeah.
I couldn't get a job for love nor money in financial services.
Mm-hmm.
So I joined an IT business as a buyer for that business, and my wife said to me, you have to have a contingency, because if something goes wrong with this IT business, you've now been in a family business that's gone that had some challenges,
Yeah.
right? You've now been at Arthur Anderson that's had some challenges. You've now been at Corporate Finance, another boutique that's not gone well. You've now been at Together that's obviously suffered from the credit crunch.
Yeah.
You've got to have a contingency, because we've now got 3 kids and we can't afford to keep going through this cycle. So I was introduced to the guy who founded what was then Drawbridge, that became Dragonfly, that became Octopus. And at the time, he was a 2-man business, him and a secretary, and he needed an underwriter. And so I was introduced to him, and so Roma was formed initially as a subcontract underwriting service for other lenders, with its principal client being Drawbridge Finance. So evenings and weekends, I'd get a file that thick scanned to me, and I'd go back with a 1-pager to say,
This is still while you're in your job.
yeah. I was moonlighting on the side. I was in
wow.
breach of my employment contract, because I wasn't allowed to do any of that stuff.
They don't watch this podcast, as far.
There's a good story that came out of that. And I'd go back with a 1-pager. Your valuers missed this, your lawyers missed that. That's on a credit search. That's on the title. Whatever, to say these are the. I'd summarise the deal. I'd then highlight the issues, and it was then their decision to either get comfortable with the issues, or to mitigate the issues, or resolve the issues. And then I would then say, right, you're now fine to go and lend. And I did that off and on for about 18 months.
Right. And then,
they recruited. I was a good underwriter, but a good underwriter is the same as other good underwriter. They recruited another good underwriter, and so the work for me started to dry up, and to the point where it completely dried up. And I was like, well, what do I do with Roma? And I thought to myself, well, I've been lending for Lancashire Mortgage for 6 years, and risen through the ranks. I've been underwriting for Drawbridge Finance for 18 months. I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to have a go at lending. But there was one problem. I didn't have any deals. I didn't have any money. And I didn't have the time to go and find deals. So I used to get in my car at lunchtime from my IT job. I used to drive around the corner, and so no one would see me, but I was still close enough that I could get there quickly. And I would phone brokers in my lunch hour. Can I have a deal? Can I have a deal? Yeah, can I have a deal? Can I have a deal? Can I have a deal? And a lot of the time people weren't available because it was lunchtime, or they'd phone me back, and they'd phone me back, and in the afternoon I was obviously busy on calls and meetings or whatever. I couldn't take calls.
No, you couldn't.
I couldn't take calls, and eventually you bang on enough, knock on enough doors, and one's a bit ajar.
That's incredible. Obviously I've known you for years, but that you set it up kind of in your lunch break, just trying to drive it forward.
What happened? I think it was March. It was maybe June. I think it was June 2010 that the work finally sort of dried up for
and that's
my
just
underwriting business.
Outsourcing for you, but they just brought it in house.
Yeah. So the work kind of dried up for me, and I thought, well, what do I do with Roma? I know, I'll go and lend. And so that summer holiday, we were in Spain. And I had a crappy little laptop. It was all I could afford. But I worked that entire 2 weeks on getting all the permissions that I needed at that time to go and form a lender. So it was obviously AML, there was data protection, there was all the kind of.
How did you do that?
There was a credit. You had to get credit permission through the Office of Fair Trading. You needed all those kind of permissions at the time.
And how did you know that? How did you get to that point? Like when you go, just have to Google it.
You research. You research.
Yeah,
you do research. And obviously, I've been at Lancashire Mortgage for 6 years. I've been working for Drawbridge for and I kind of understood a little bit about what that world needed to look like, and what I needed to form a lender.
There's so much to learn. I could just imagine it relatively overwhelming. I mean, I know you've got another job as well, but just there's so much when you're doing it on your own.
Yes.
To take on board.
Yep. But you've got to have a go.
Yeah.
And there's a JFDI that people talk about. And life is often like that. That you've got to at some point in your life say, I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah.
And
That's
I
a much
think
more
that
polite way of saying, JFD, I'm just going to go for it.
just going to go for it. And that is so true, that you've got an idea, you've got a concept, and my concept was, instead of lending purely on the LTV of a property, or the value of the property,
Yeah,
actually I wanted to really, scratch the surface, lift the bonnet on a transaction, and understand the people that sat behind a loan,
yeah,
why they needed the money, what they were doing with it, and how, and ultimately how they would be able to pay us back. And what that led me to was, again, because of my lack of collections experience, what that led me to was, actually, if I can lend to people who are using my money to appreciate the value of a property,
yeah.
okay, but I'm lending against the value of the property as it is now,
Hopefully can't lose.
then effectively, obviously the loan balance is going up over time,
Yeah,
but in theory the value of the property is going up faster,
yeah.
which means that over time the loans are getting de-risked, which means that if there is a problem, or there's a curveball, I can trade through those problems with a customer that I can keep incentivized and keep interested, which also means I never need to go and collect. So as long as I am monitoring the works and
Yeah,
seeing that the properties are improving in value, or there's something's happened to improve the property's value, then
the
that's got
money
to be a
is
good
safe.
thing, right?
So when was that? When was your first loan? When did your first loan go out?
15th of December 2010.
Wow. So you grafted for 6 months on the phone before you'd even got a
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
loan
yeah.
out the door.
So when you are starting a business and no one's ever heard of you, okay?
No.
So
It must be so tough at the beginning.
well, the vast majority of people, you pick up the phone to them, and I'm Scott Marshall from Roma Finance, but you give them a spiel, right? They just it's a hey fellow, well met conversation. Thanks very much indeed. They can't wait to get off the phone,
Yeah,
and so, or most people say to you, in a polite way, have sex and travel,
yeah,
okay, or f off.
yeah, yeah. But how do? Because obviously you didn't naturally come from the sales side of things either, right? So just
No,
getting on the phone is a quite a big deal to do that, because
yeah,
you can understand a deal, but they don't know that, right? On a
yeah,
phone call, it's
correct.
just about being able to sell yourself to
Yeah,
all.
yeah. And I realised, and in my earlier days, I realised that I'd talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, but I often wouldn't get any business from all that talking.
Right.
And again, this took a while to happen, but I met somebody who changed my entire mindset and taught me what sales is all about. And what sales is all about is the ability to create a buying atmosphere. So you don't go and create a sales atmosphere,
Yeah.
you go and create a buying atmosphere. And there's a subtle difference
Yeah.
between the two. So
Well, people don't like being
because
sold to, do they? They like buying stuff.
people buy stuff from people that they want to buy from,
Yeah.
and getting earning credibility in that sales or buying process is the thing that other people buy into. And I think that, looking back, and certainly I think this is true, my credit background and my ability to understand numbers and understand the underwriting on a case, and the mindset where actually I'd been on the other side of the
Yeah.
fence,
Yeah.
meant that you can kind of come across in a completely different way from a salesperson that's
But
trying
BDM
to,
types. Yeah.
because you also you know what you're talking about, um, and I think that gave me a huge advantage.
Yeah. Just credibility wise, right? Because you get it.
Yeah.
You speak the language and you understand it. Even
Yes.
saying no to deals, it still gives you credibility, doesn't it?
Again, how you say no to a deal is more important than how you say yes.
Yeah.
Because if you say no in the wrong way, or at the wrong time, so a slow no, a slow, painful no, is the worst thing possible.
Do you know what's funny is everyone seems to know that now, but you still come across it all the time. The biggest issue is not doing what you say you're going to do or not getting back. Yet people still do. Like, we all know that's the biggest bugbear of lenders, same as recruiters. We're all in the same boat. Not getting
Yeah,
back and not doing what you say you're going to do is a massive thing. But yet we still come across it on a daily basis.
I think people can see through salespeople that will just say yes to everything,
Yeah,
because you kind of lose patience a bit with those people, and actually credibility falls away quite quickly. There's nothing worse than being sold to by somebody who is obviously not telling you the truth.
Yeah.
I think people would much rather hear, look, Marcus, I'm not. There's some issues that I'm thinking about at the moment, which let me just kind of raise with you. I'm not sure whether this is going to be one that I can get through because of these reasons. And you then talk through those reasons, and actually how you respond to those things is also part of the relationship building process.
Yeah.
So even if it's something that,
sorry, I was going to say it works exactly the same on the recruitment side of things, where we have to be really honest with people and say, look, for the thing that you're offering isn't going to work. If you're going to want to pay us for it, it might work for someone, but and I say, well, I've spoke to a recruiter and they said they can get me 10 people tomorrow, and I'm like, okay, they won't. But you know that in a month's time they'll be back on the phone to you and go, okay, let's talk about the thing that you can do rather than the thing that they can't. It's
yes.
you've got to say no, haven't you? Because
Yeah, and I think the other thing as well is that when you are lending to somebody who is doing something that's going to add value to a property, and they there's touch points that take place with that borrower after you've released the initial amount of money.
Yeah.
And therefore you've got multiple opportunities to build a relationship with a customer that can then stand you in good stead for the long term for getting future business.
Yeah.
Whereas if you are writing a second charge, if you are writing a mortgage, if you are writing a buy to let, if you're writing in many cases a bridging loan, you're
Done.
once the money's gone, there's the only touch points are if a customer fails to make a payment, and something happens that causes you to reach out, either missed payments, or there's a CCJ, or there's a request for what problem with the loan, right? Technical problem with the loan.
Really speaks to people when there's a problem.
Yeah. Whereas and so or when we're getting our money back.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas on a refurb or a development case where you're doing further advances, you've got constant touch points with the customer where at each stage you are building and cementing, in theory, a stronger, longer term partnership with a customer that's actually, their success moment and your success moment are completely intertwined. You are working with each other collaboratively to get to a positive outcome at the end. And so you can't help but build a strong long-term relationship with a good borrower.
And how easy is that being? Obviously, and we'll go through this because we're only at 2010. But you built the business up to it. How many people have you got now at Roma?
65.
60,
including the board, 70.
Blimey. So how do you maintain that as you grow? Because as that one man band vision of keeping in contact with everyone, making sure and culture wise, I absolutely agree. It's the most important part of a business. How do you maintain it as you go through like the difficulties of like 10, 20, 50? How have you maintained that?
You make lots of mistakes and you have to learn from them.
Yeah.
And I have made loads of mistakes.
Do you ever feel it when you go, I'm moving in the wrong direction? Are you good at changing stuff quite quickly, or do you like quite stubborn?
Yeah. So people can interview. The whole thing is based around people.
Yeah.
So, and I remember I used to do everything myself, even to the point where I even used to do the compliance certificates and the returns to what was NRBS on the first funding line that we got in 2016. I used to do all of them myself, and then I kind of like.
Was that a control thing? Or was that just wanting?
Partly, if I'm honest, partly.
Yeah.
And then I remember I delegated that to somebody else, and they started. Who was my sort of credit controller, for want of a better phrase, at that time, and he found a different way of doing it, and his way of doing it was much better than mine. And I just thought, this is interesting. Actually, he's better than me at doing that job.
Yeah.
What on earth have I been doing that for so long? I should have delegated it sooner.
And that first one, did you start feeling like, okay, so someone could do that? What else can I give away?
Yeah. What else can I give away? And so again, going back to it, so the area where I've been really successful recruiting is underwriting, customer services, collections, all the kind of areas where I've got a bit of knowledge about. The area that I've
Good
been
underwriting, aren't you? You've done it for long enough. You got it. Like you just had just one
you know,
conversation. You go whether they got it or not.
the area that I've been less successful recruiting, certainly until recently, has been on the sales side. And I think that's because I'm not a natural salesperson by
Yeah,
background or
yeah.
whatever. And so I've been less successful at identifying the right
You know
skills
what? If
to
you had to
go and
pick one to cock up, it'd probably be sales over over underwriting.
well, and that's a good thing because it's right.
Yeah.
So I've definitely. So one example was I brought somebody into the business
Hmm.
who I'd known for a long time. I thought that they would be good in the sales or background in sales,
Yeah.
and culturally, it did not work at all.
How long out of interest, did it take for you to notice that? Was it? I always liken it to bad relationships where you kind of know in the back of your head, but you're kind of pushing it back for as long as possible. Was it? Or was it?
Yeah, interesting. When I knew this person, we didn't particularly get on previously,
Right.
and so I spent a long time talking,
Hmm.
and I thought that this person was different. I
Yeah.
thought it had moved on and what have you,
Hmm.
and I think that when you're in sales, you live or you die by the sword,
Yeah.
and when the heat was turned up on this person, they reverted back to type,
Got you.
and what happened was. And again, this is a lesson for me too, in that other people in the business were too scared to say
Yeah.
that things weren't working, that they weren't happy, they were feeling it, it was the culture was becoming toxic,
Yeah.
and then one person had the guts to tell me what was actually going on.
Really.
And then as soon as I had a whiff that there was a problem, scratched beneath the surface, found out there was a
Yeah.
bigger problem, and the decision was made within 24 hours.
Really. Once you got it, once you know.
Once I knew it, this was been
I
24
suppose it's
hours.
because they're not in sales. You can't. You probably don't sense it on the sales floor if you like.
No,
You know what I mean? If you
you
walk
know,
in, I feel I'm an emotionally led person, so I get it straight away if I walk in and so things aren't right, if things are changing. But I'm completely blind to the other side of the business that you're exceptional at. You know, so it's
if you think about the area that you're weak at, which
mm,
is is numbers, which by what I admitted earlier,
yeah, yeah.
if somebody is screwing up in your business on the numbers,
I'm gonna see it.
how will you see it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I
You
brought them in
need
to do that, right? That's not
Yeah,
like
and because you brought them in to do it, the people that are reporting into them, they'll see it. But because that person's at a senior level,
yeah, between
people are
you. Yeah,
scared. People are scared to put their head above the parapet and say to you,
yeah, yeah,
Marcus, look, there's a problem with the numbers. It's that we're doing this and something else is
yeah.
happening.
Something else.
So
Yeah,
it's hard. It's very hard in the business to encourage whistleblowing.
yeah. How do you? Have you tried to incorporate that more since
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
happened?
yeah.
Whistleblowing is
We
a tough
try.
one. You mean like constructive feedback is a difficult because whistleblowing sounds shit, doesn't it? It's just a bit. It's
Yeah,
hard.
and there's an old saying which is that the messenger always gets shot.
Yeah, you don't want to be the one, do you?
You don't be the
If
messenger
you're
get they
wrong,
get shot.
if that person was wrong and you felt that they were wrong, that's ruined them, right? That
Yeah,
they're kind of duffel because you know that you're going to their boss and that kind of thing. So it
but
takes
you also
takes a lot
don't
of
know.
takes a lot of
But you
balls
also don't know.
to manage
You
it.
also don't know when there's a situation where you are speaking out of turn about someone that's more
Yeah, that's what I
senior
mean. Yeah,
than you.
I don't know your
You,
relationship or anything, do they?
you haven't got a clue.
Mm.
It is the hardest thing to
No.
do to whistleblow in a business because ultimately you as the whistleblower, and then let's say it didn't work out and then you were exited and you try and go and get another job and someone says to you, well, what was the reason for leaving? Well, I
No,
was the
no.
whistleblower. I was the whistleblower. Now they became the scapegoats. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm going
and
to take
you're
you on,
good because
aren't I?
someone else
I'm
that
going
you know.
to take you on because you're clearly a troublemaker. So it is a really, really, really hard
Yeah,
thing to
yeah,
do.
absolutely. I mean,
And
we try and push it in the business, right? That everyone we try. I mean, ours is very different from yours because there's nine of us, but always trying to build a business where the feedback is so important. Constructive feedback. If I'm doing something wrong, please tell me. I also know that people blow smoke up my ass because I still pay the payroll. Do you know what I mean? It's a really tricky thing, and I like to believe that everyone is open and honest with me and Gemma who runs the candidate team and that kind of thing. But you don't know, do you? You're not in people's heads. You don't know what you don't know.
correct. And people also only tell you what they want you to hear.
Yeah,
And again, going back to where I started the business, um, when I started the business, I wanted to meet every single borrower face to face. And if you think about the kind of journey that a customer takes to get
Yeah.
to your business as a lender, let's say extreme situation, you've got the guy that's down the pub that sees his mate that says, I'm looking to borrow money to do this. The mate says, I know somebody. That person knows an IFA. That IFA knows a broker. The broker knows a packager. The packager knows you as a lender, right?
Yeah.
And each person in that chain is telling the next person what they think they need to know in
Yeah.
order to get to try to help and sell it.
Yeah.
And so me going to meet that applicant over there, cutting all that noise out, meant that I was able to, to understand you, Marcus, as an
Yeah.
applicant, why you're borrowing the money. And often what would happen is between that first meeting and the loan completing, the whole loan was completely restructured
Really.
because
Just
the
little bits of
product,
information.
the product that was given to me to issue terms on day one was very different from what the actual customer needed. And I had all sorts of challenges where the broker would say, I'm not letting you meet my customer.
Really?
Not letting you talk to my
I
customer.
suppose we're a bit precious about the customer.
Because they feel that again, Roma was unknown at that time, and it wasn't the done thing in the market. If you think about what you were doing at Go Commercial, if I at Lancashire Mortgage said to you, right, I want to, there was a speak with at the end of the process before the funds were released. But if I'd said to you, right, okay, so that deal's quite marginal. I want to have the conversation with the borrower. What do you want to do that for? And so that has to come through trust.
Yeah.
That when you've met
how long does it take to build that up then, that trust side of things?
Ages. And in 2010, 2011, when I started it, and don't forget there were very few lenders in the market at that time.
Yeah.
Because it was right after the credit crunch. We were the only lender at that time that wanted to go and meet its customers.
Yeah.
And people were nervous that we were going to cut them out the deal. We were going to cut them out the deal. We were not going to do it. Whatever it was.
At the time as well, wasn't it? There wasn't much, there was loads of business going around,
No. But once you have shown a broker that by meeting the customer, by talking to the borrower, actually the product that gets sold is a far more suitable product, and you explain the reasons why. Look, Marcus, I've restructured this deal from that into this, and these are the reasons why. And actually, the customer's happier with that product because of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You Marcus, you go flipping out. Wow, brilliant! So it completes more quickly.
Yeah.
The path is eased through the legal process,
also, like
then you go. Do you know what? That's worse. I'll give them another deal.
Yeah. So what was the timeline between that kind of first deal to drumming up where you were like, right, we need to get people in now. We need to, this is a proper business, if you like.
I'd been searching for, so December 2010, we wrote the first loan. Yeah. March 2011, the second. April, then May 2011. We kind of kept it going. And my day job, I was still doing my day job. So, and I'd go and meet borrowers, depending on where they were, evenings and weekends.
Your lunch break, just run off.
If it was Manchester.
Yeah.
But I'd meet borrowers, most time weekends, and I would say to them, look, I'm that busy doing stuff in the week that I just, I can only do my visits at the weekend. That's a time that I've got to come and see you.
I'm writing so much business.
So much business. So and people understood it, and also they had day jobs too.
Yeah.
And so they, how many times does a person come out of their ivory tower to come and see you at a weekend? It's like, in many cases, it was a massive tick in the box. It was more convenient for them. They didn't have to take any time off work. So, that worked. And the hardest piece was finding, again, because I had a day job and it was evenings and weekends I was doing this, and I was massively limited to capacity and what I could do. The hardest bit was trying to find somebody to come into a business as an employee of a company that nobody else is working in, not even the boss.
The owner,
Not even the owner works in it. And so I kissed a lot of frogs.
Yeah.
Trying to get people to join, and there's people like, well, why on earth am I going to take a risk on you? Why would I do it?
On you still got a job.
and eventually, I bumped into somebody completely by chance, and look, a lot of it is about the stars being aligned, right?
Yeah.
I bumped into somebody who I used to work with at Lancashire Mortgage Corporation, and he was made redundant in 2012 from Lancashire.
Yeah.
He was working in PPI on the phones, absolutely hated it, and on the spot, I offered him a job.
Yeah.
And I think he went home that night and spoke to his missus, and his missus thought, said to him, "What the,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
what on earth are you doing?" And he said, "No," he said, "I've got a good feeling, and I think I'm going to go for it." And he did, and he started on the 2nd of January 2014. So he's just done 10 years in January this year.
Wow.
First colleague that's done
Who is
10
it?
years, Daniel Hill.
Oh, amazing.
So he's just did 10 years in January,
Yeah,
and and then in the first few months for 9 months actually after he joined, what would happen is the two of us would get into the office 6:30 in the morning every morning.
yeah.
We'd do 2 hours work together before I would go and do my IT job at
Good
half
job.
eight. Yeah,
Bloody
and
hell.
then
So
half eight
2004,
till
you were
yeah.
still
Yeah,
driving business and doing.
So half eight till half 12, I'd be doing the IT job, and Dan would be trying to, phone around brokers trying to get business and drum up
Yeah,
business. Half 12 till half 1 or 2 o'clock, if I could,
push
push
it.
push it a little bit. I'd be then, doing Roma,
Yeah,
and then 1:30 or 2 o'clock until 5:30, I was then doing the IT stuff. 5 o'clock, I then go back to Roma, and sit with Dan until half 7, 8 o'clock at night.
wow,
And we did that. The two of us did that long, 13, 14-hour day for 9 months.
blimey,
And I would go and see the potential customers
the weekend.
at weekends.
Incredible.
And it was seriously taxing and seriously hard work, and put
Oh,
stresses and
that is
strains on
a huge.
home
You're in
life.
a headspace doing your job.
Tough,
Running a business is
tough.
tough. Having a day job whilst running a business is not
And
possible.
eventually, it became so difficult
Yeah,
that by August, I was getting burnt out and I was absolutely exhausted. So at that point, I handed my notice in
yeah.
to the IT business, and I joined Roma, ironically as its
You're
second
running a
employee,
second.
on the 1st of October 2014.
That is incredible that you.
But the other thing is as well is that between when I started the business as a subcontract underwriting service
Mhm.
at the beginning of 2009, so we issued our first invoice for underwriting services in March 2009.
Yeah,
So between March 2009 and the end of September 2014, so
yeah,
5.5 years, I didn't draw a wage.
really. Because you were
Everything was
working.
reinvested back. Everything
It
was
really is
reinvested
hard
back in the
because
business.
like you were talking about burning the bridges when it's a business and going for it and putting everything into it, but that's pretty sensible, right? Because you could have gone pop quite easily if you hadn't have had the backing and you've got a family to look after.
Yep.
I've got no backup plan, by the way. If this fails, I don't know what's happening. I've got an IT job in the background. I've got nothing. But it's
There's
interesting.
always a sale. There's always a sales job for you here,
Yeah,
Marcus.
yeah. But genuinely, that's an incredible story that you could start a business like that.
And it was completely bootstrapped.
Yeah,
It didn't couldn't pay anybody a decent wage. I mean, Dan started on a really 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 low wage,
yeah,
heavily commission
yeah, yeah.
commission incentivized, and to
You
his
had a pay rise, right?
absolute. He's doing very well. He's doing very very well.
Yeah,
B,
cool.
he's enormously looked after, being looked after,
Yeah, yeah.
for
Well, he took a
his
massive risk with you bringing in,
massive.
and that's a lovely story that they're still there because I always speak to a lot of business owners, and it's happened the same with us. Is that the people that start with you aren't the people that are there 3 years later, but you think they're going to be, but they don't evolve with the business quickly
hmm
enough. But obviously, that's
hmm
not the case with Dan. He's clearly he's evolved with the business as well, right?
Well, and look, he's moved into different roles within the business. So he started off in sales underwriting. His skill set is much more sales than underwriting.
Yeah,
Moved away from underwriting completely, moved into sales, and that's really where his skill set sits. He's fantastic
yeah,
at building relationships, transactional stuff, responding quickly. He's also taken other people under his wing at Rome and helped grow and develop other people within the business.
nice.
And there's no way that Roma would be where it is today without Dan having taken that risk
Yeah,
10.5 years ago to
that's
join the
incredible.
business.
And obviously, he just bought into you as well. Like that's a big thing to get anyone to. Do you know
Mm.
what? It's interesting. I speak to one-man bands, and they're always like, "Why would someone come work for us?" And I always say, especially with brokers, I think it's different with lending, but because it's a slightly bigger risk. But I always say to them, like, if they want to go and work for Knight Frank, they can. But you don't
Mm.
want that person. You want the person that buys into your journey. And that's for the first maybe 5 or 6 employees. You've got to give a good enough story, haven't you, for people to buy into, because it is made up, because you don't know where it's. You've got no background, you've got no history. So how do you get the next
Yep.
employees? How do you get their buy-in?
So again, I made some mistakes. So once you've got one person, it becomes a little bit easier
Yeah,
to
not a
get.
lot.
Not a lot easier. Second and third. The Of the next 4 people that I recruited between April 2015 and August 2015, 2 of those are still with me.
Amazing. But you know,
And
it's so
both of those
important.
will
When you build
celebrate
that
10
core,
years next year.
that core of the business is so important. We've got a good
Yeah.
solid core. And I mean, ironically, I'm in recruitment. Obviously, I concentrate on other people's businesses more than I do my own, as is every business. But we still cock up, right? We've still got people that we haven't worked out and that kind of thing. And you think, and again, I'm emotionally led, so I buy into everyone that they're going to do same to variable. But we have got a really good core, which is kind of, touch wood, safe. You know, they're just good.
Yep.
They're good at what they
Yep.
do. They buy into the business. They get the vision, and then you can kind of build around that, can't you? But you've got to
Yep.
get those kind of 4 or 5
So
people.
one of those 2 people that joined us in the first half of 2015 is now head of credit for the business.
Amazing.
And one of the people who joined the business then, I think in May 2015, is now manages the entire portfolio. So, and again, but that person has done in Roma, has done sales, done
Yeah,
underwriting,
yeah.
they've put systems in, they've done
They've
office
earned their
moves,
stripes, haven't they, in Roma? They've done it. They've worked
I
in it.
think, I think the other thing is as well that we've also been good at Roma is when somebody joins, if they're not in the right position for them, trying to find another position that, if they're good people,
Yeah,
trying to find another position within the organisation that can match their
yeah.
skill set.
Amen. I
And
just
so
think get the
as the
right people on the bus.
as a business has grown, so what happens is you've got people in these roles, the business grows, and it creates new roles within the business for people to go and fill. And sometimes you need to bring talent in at that level.
Yeah,
Okay, and so, but sometimes what you want is people that have joined, you want them to grow
yeah, yeah.
their careers within your organisation. And
Like you say,
I find it incredibly rewarding
yeah,
seeing other people develop careers in an organisation that I've created, because otherwise people wouldn't have had those. You know, it's massively um, satisfying to see other people do well in your business.
do you know what? It is one of the greatest things, and it's so strange that you can't explain that. I totally think it's why you sat in business, but there's so much pressure when it comes into buying, getting a
Mm,
business and building it and that kind of thing.
mm,
Actually,
mm.
seeing people flourish, especially as us
Yeah.
with a bit with people, it's incredible, isn't it?
One of the most satisfying parts of my job is seeing other people do well.
Yeah,
And that doesn't matter whether it is our borrowers doing well from the money that we've given them that enables them to go on a journey,
yeah,
or seeing colleagues do well within Roma that enables them to go on their journey within Roma. And sometimes, look, they people get as far as they can within your business, so they
yeah,
look to
yeah.
then
You're not going to keep
grow their wings
everyone.
somewhere
Yeah,
else. But they should leave as much as possible, they should leave as a brand ambassador of your organisation. So when they go somewhere else, actually, I've had a positive experience of working with you,
yeah. I've got where I need
and
to be.
yeah. So and the other thing is we've also helped others grow their businesses outside of Roma. So we form strong relationships with third parties that we work with, and we enjoy seeing their businesses
Yeah, yeah.
grow and flourish and develop as well. And again, I think that also helps grow your business too.
I think it's part of being in a non-transactional business for us. Like we're the same. We get to watch. We get to do something good, and then our clients grow. And for us, that's incredible. So not only do we get to enjoy our business with people in it, you get to watch other people's as well.
Yeah.
I'm a natural cheerleader. That's my job. Do you know what I mean? I'm just watching other people's stuff, people grow is incredible.
So going back to it, so obviously you formed your business,
Mm-hmm.
and you've always got 10 staff or thereabouts now, 10 people
Yeah,
working with you. How did you step back from doing all the recruiting, doing everything yourself?
haven't. No,
You've got time for this, so
yeah, yeah.
you
No, I've got an
must
ops
have.
manager. She's incredible. I only started recruiting 3 years ago. So although I've been in it for 10 years, 50 or whatever it was, but ages. Um, It was only when I got to 39 when I started thinking, do you want to be on the phone when you're 80, or do you want to start building a legacy? So I was relatively lazy in the early years in the sense that I'd just do anything. If I needed to work harder to go on another holiday, I'd just phone more. It was very, very, very lifestyle business when I started. But in answer to your question, I got an ops manager in. She came in as a resourcer, and she was just like, "You don't even use your CRM system. You literally have a phone book, and you just go out." And I said, "Yeah, that's what my job is. I'm a traveling salesman." And she's like, "That's not really a business." So she fixed all my processes side of things, and because of that, that means people would buy into the business more because it's a proper business. It's not me with 5,000 contacts on my phone just getting busy all day. But yeah, it's a similar thing. So she came on, but once she started doing stuff like you, I went, oh God, what else can I do then? So what am I really good at? I'm really good at relationship management, looking after my customers. I love the bigger picture, 5-year story. Tell me where you're going to be in 5 years. Tell me where you're going to be in 10 years. That's what gets me excited. I'm not overly good at interviewing because I get too emotional and I get too excited. So I've got a great team now who do all the interviewing with people because they get into the depths of actually what the person wants. But yeah, that's the magic of actually finding out what you're not good at, which is loads.
and it is absolutely is. But it's massively satisfying to see again to see. Like, it also helps you. It's easy to recruit as well. I guess on a number side, you've got people that do numbers for you as well now that you trust.
I will definitely speak to you again because we only got to sort of 2014, but it's genuinely been really, really interesting. I hope people have got some value out of it because I've loved listening. And like I said, I didn't even know it was that far in. So I appreciate your time. Thank you for everyone listening as well, and everyone watching.